What's up, Hobby Maniacs? Today we are going to show you how to play Blood Bowl. We have with us loosely labeled subject matter expert Jeremy.
Very loosely.
I'll say. And John.
He's the very loose one.
Woo!
Spiky bits.
So we're going down to the field with Jeremy. He's our subject matter loosely worded expert.
Yeah, very loosely worded.
Tell us about these humans.
So the first of the two teams in the starter set, the humans, they're pretty much average at everything. So when you start with the human team, they're kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. So we're going to go down the list here. We got the throwers. They're pretty much your primary ball handlers early on because they can actually dump it out if you really need to, and I do believe they start, let's see where they start skill-wise. They do have sure hands, which allows you to re-roll pick up on a ball, and ball control is incredibly important in this game, so they are pretty ideal to start with. Next, we're going to move over. We got the blitzers, which are your primary piece. Human teams need blitzers to function. Unfortunately, in the starter sets, you're not getting all four of those positionals. You only start with two, so if you start with the humans, you might want to pick up a blister pack or trade with somebody else that doesn't want humans out of their starter set.
So
works for their humans.
Those are the guys with the fancy,
fancy helmets,
the crests.
And, yeah, really punchy guys.
Okay.
They start with the skill block, which allows them to stay on their feet a little bit because of the result both down on the dice. And makes them a little bit bashier because if somebody else doesn't have block, they knock them right over. Their stats are a little above average versus the rest of the human team minus the catcher and movement. And they're incredibly versatile players when you're playing in a league. And you can develop them pretty much any way you want. Ball carrier, killer, everything.
So these stats here, this is movement, strength,
agility and armor value.
Armor value, okay. Got it.
Move up to the catchers. These guys are pretty cool. They have their own like block dodging skill, essentially which dodge obviously, and they have catch. So when they're past the ball, catch gives them that reroll to if they fail to catch the ball, they get to reroll that automatically because it's built in. Dodge, it allows them to essentially dodge this on the dice as the defender stumbles on the dice. It kind of works like block in that regard. Unless your opponent has tackle, and it also allows them to reroll a dodge when they're dodging away from a tackle zone from another player. They're pretty fast, and to compensate for their speed, they're a little bit weaker and they have less armor. And then you have what we're going to call your linemen or your meat shields. So these guys are really only good for getting in the way of stuff.
That's the six dudes in the back there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Those are the guys that you're going to throw in front of black orcs and in front of big guys if you don't have it. When you actually start with a more competitive build for humans, you're not going to have as many linemen. You're going to have an ogre in there and a couple more blitzers. So these guys are pretty good to learn how to play the game because they have average stats. And you can kind of do a little bit of everything if you need to in a pinch with them. But the humans they're capable of passing and running and bashing, just not as well as bashing as orcs are, as capable of passing as wood elves are, or as capable at running as dark elves are.
But this is a great way to learn the game, basically.
Yep, they have enough skills, stock to pretty much be forgiving, I would say, and allow you to actually learn different facets of the game. They play all phases. They can run, pass, and block well, so you're going to learn all phases of the game, as if you started with something like High Elves, you wouldn't learn anything but really the ball movement skills. So.
All right, well, let's check out the orcs.
So what's good with these orcs?
Oh, man, orcs are a baller team. I'm not even kidding. These are one of the best teams in Blood Bowl. So what you have here is the same issue that you have with the human team in the starter set is you don't have all the positionals. Specifically, you have the black orcs and the blitzers. You only get 2 of each on the starter. You can have 0 to 4 on your team when you start a roster, and generally you're going to have 4 of each. Let's start with the black orcs. They are your big wall and punchy guys, really. They're not going to be doing a lot of blitzing, but they're going to be that front of the cage. And the things that take the most hits on your team, they are big dudes. They are stronger than anything, for example, as a human team has and in the box set. They are basically your front line of offense and defense. They can take a lot of hits and they can dish them out just as good. The only downfall they have is they are slow to level up. They are not agile. They don't score touchdowns.
It doesn't look like they have any skills either.
Nope, they start with none. So when you're starting in a league, you're really kind of banking on them getting an MVP to really get them going. But they are phenomenal. It's hard for some teams to punch through strength 4 walls of dudes. And behind them, you got the throwers. These guys are pretty important early on for orcs. You're the only guys they have with ball carrying skills, and you really need that, especially with a lot of teams that end up getting like strip ball or something like that. They have sure hands, so that allows them to re-roll the pickup on the ball, makes it a little more of a certain thing, and allows them to dodge things like war dancers jumping into your cage and trying to strip the ball out of them.
So also no skills.
No, the passer? The thrower?
Oh, passers.
Sure hands and pass.
Oh,
the pass skill you're not really going to use that often. Your orcs, you usually just want to punch your way down the field and grind the opponent down and score at the last second. But I've made a decent amount of passes at the last second in several games playing with them over the years.
I believe they call that Hail Mary.
With orcs, it's just hold my beer.
Hey, watch this.
Yeah, pretty much. And they hands down the best player on the team. You got the blitzers. You definitely, if after you get the starter set, you want to expand and have all 4 of these guys. They are versatile as all hell. These guys are they're your star players. They start with block like the human blitzers do. They have a little bit more armor. They're not quite as quick in terms of movement, and they have your average strength and agility. So they can, move around the board just as well as your average player. But at the same time, they're a little punchier. They take a lot more hits better, and they do have solid skill access. So it's not uncommon to see them go around and become kind of role players for the orc team. You'll have like a guard support guy or a killer, and pretty much whatever you want with them. Honestly, they're pretty solid players. And that armor 9's a big deal. I think that's what separates them from
Yeah, I was just noticing that. I was like, wow, these guys have a varying degree of stats here.
Yeah. I combine that with the Black Orc armor 9 and high strength, and these guys picking off whatever they want to when your opponent's still trying to figure out a way to get past those Black Orcs and a troll later on if you have that. They're pretty nasty. I've got them, get them dodge on a double roll when they level up, or get them catch. You can do whatever you want with the orc team, really. But you generally want to stick with them killing stuff and taking the ball away from the ball carrier. The linemen over here, the orc linemen are pretty solid.
Okay.
They, unlike the human linemen, they are armor 9. So I will take that 5 movement over the 6 movement just for the armor 9, because these guys in a pinch can sit in front of big guys and absorb all those mighty blow shots and just kind of slow them down for the entire game. There's nothing like watching your opponent's mummies just spend 16 turns dealing with 2 linemen because they just won't die. But that's pretty much the gist of the orc team. They just pick up the ball, cage up, and punch your way downfield. Sometimes you just gotta get the throwers and tell your buddy to hold your beer and hope for the best, but it does work out sometimes.
I like it. Well, let's check out some setups and head to the kickoff.
All right, so I'm going to be kicking off today. So I set up in kind of a basic defensive formation. I only put 3 guys, which is the minimum
Called the
on the
basic
front
white
line.
girl.
The basic white girl formation. The catcher sitting back here drinking a Starbucks coffee. I basically know these guys are going to get beat up, so they're just up there as sacrificial pawns to slow these guys down a little bit, so I can hopefully position one of my faster moving guys to slow them up down the field.
So I kind of just, being the receiver, set up 2 of the Black Orcs up there because, that's where they need to be, punching stuff. I threw a lineman up there to support because if the stronger Black Orcs take out one of those linemen in front of them, then I'm going to get an additional assist. I'm going to get an assist on the lineman right there and get 2 die on the guy he's adjacent with. I kind of went with a wider formation because in case he gets a blitz action on the kickoff, he has to actually go through tackle zones to get to the ball or get to where my ball carrier is going to be. And left players back with the 2 guys that are good at actually handling the ball. So I have a better chance of picking up the ball and then caging around them to protect them as they move down the field. So just to go over what tackle zones are for you guys new to the game, tackle zones are all the adjacent squares around a certain player, any of the players on the pitch. So for example, if he had a catcher that was trying to go through all of these tackle zones, and say he was right here, he would have to make a dodge roll to get away from the orcs without getting knocked over and then suffering an armor roll. And for each tackle zone each player on a tackle zone he's dodging into, it adds an additional minus. So it's an agility roll, and it's something that's a little risky with agility 3. They're not elves, so you kind of want to avoid it as much as possible. And this also goes into blocking. Blocking, you can block any player that is adjacent to your tackle zone. And assists are given when you have somebody that is adjacent to that player that you're blocking in their box around them. And this player can give an assist because he doesn't have anybody in his tackle zone. Whereas if he had this player on this side and this guy right here, that guy couldn't give an assist because he's got this lineman in his tackle zone. Now, because we skipped that, before you really set your players up, you roll for the weather. So I'm going to have John roll 2d6 to determine the weather result. So he rolled a 2, and that gives us sweltering heat on the weather table. So after every drive, you roll a d6 for each player on the pitch. At the end of the drive, on a roll of a 1, that player collapses and may not be set up for the next kickoff.
Sounds bad.
The absolute worst weather result.
Oh no, it could be worse. It could be a blizzard or something. John's he's gonna set up for the kickoff, so he's gonna place the ball. And he's placing it right next to my thrower. Now, before he does the scatter for the kickoff, he's gonna roll 2d6 and determine what is gonna happen on the kickoff table, which could be good for me, bad for me, or horrible for both of us. He rolled a 4. A 4 is perfect defense. The kicking team gets to set up again, essentially.
Get to reorganize our players, so I'm going to go ahead and basically just move everything forward. Alright, so I use perfect defense, just kind of push a little bit further. Jeremy set up farther back, and he only has 1 blitz action per turn, so he's only going to be able to move up and actually hit one of my guys once. It's a little riskier, but it causes him to have to make a decision earlier on, is my goal with this, which side he's going to want to go to. So, alright, and then after rolling on the kickoff table, what we're going to do is scatter the ball. This is the 8-sided template that scatters into one of the 8 boxes around where the ball is going to land. And then you're going to roll 1d6 in the provided d8 to go ahead and see how far and which direction that the kickoff lands.
Now, this is the only time you use the d6 to scatter, right?
Correct. Any other time that you do a scatter, it's going to just scatter the 1d8. In some instances, it'll scatter multiple times with the d8, but that's the only time you're going to use the d6 is on the kickoff.
Gotcha.
No, you also use the d6, actually, to correct you. You'll also use the d6 if the ball goes out of bounce and the crowd throws it back in.
Oh,
And the crowd throws it back
Right.
in. Yeah.
Show us that template real quick.
Oh, so that's this one over here. Sorry for messing that up. So this one right here is basically a D3 style.
You put this on the
template that we
line
got on here.
like this.
Yep, so it'll go on the edge like this. Say the ball went out of bounds right here. You put the template where the ball went out of bounds, and then you roll your d6 to see which direction it rolls. It goes to just a normal d3 like we're all used to rolling, and then distance, it's going to go d6 distance as well.
So for the throw-in template for the crowd, the correction on that is it's actually 2d6. I just wanted to verify. So the crowd, if the ball goes into the crowd gets really antsy and just chucks it back in because they want to see more blood. And just watching more players jump around and try to pick up the ball. It's hilarious.
Put the template down. Doesn't really matter which direction we put it. But... And 5 to the 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Right in front of his alignment.
So the first turn for Orcs, my plan honestly is to protect the ball first because I want to take care of all of the moves that I have that don't require me to actually roll any dice, because that's how you kind of screw yourself in Blood Bowl. So basically what I'm going to do is move a bunch of my linemen around the ball, and then once I have that protected, I'm probably going to throw my blitz first because the blitzer has block, so that won't require a reroll if I roll double both downs, for example, on somebody that doesn't have block. And then I'll move to my blocks with the Black Orcs, and then the linemen, and then the riskiest thing is going to be picking up the ball. And if I have it protected, I can punch things first and then move to that. Is the last thing I want to do. As for the most important thing, then for most of you that have actually played the online versions, the Cyanide games, you don't actually have to control this because it automatically moves your turn marker. So you don't get a turnover, we're going to move our turn marker to turn 1 because it's the turn I'm about to take, and you have to do that before you do anything. For the blitz action, so I'm going to move this guy, this lineman up. He's got 5 movement. I'm going to move him 1, 2, 3 to base this lineman. And I'm going to activate this player, and I'm going to declare my blitz action at the beginning of his activation. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this player. It's going to count 5 movement, so you can throw the blitz on this guy. I have 1 assist because this guy right here is in nobody else's tackle zone. So it's going to be 3 plus 1 strength, so 4 on 3 strength, which is going to be 2 dice. And he does not have block, so I'm going to elect to take the both down because I have block. And it's going to drop him right in that square. Now we move to the armor roll. He's armor 8. Nothing. So he is just knocked down. Now I have one more movement that I can use. So what I'm going to do to make sure that I keep my blitzer free is move him back 1. So that's 6 movement, and he's going to end his activation.
So you can split up your... Oh, because you blitzed.
Yep. If you have any leftover
Okay.
movement after you blitz, you can use the rest of that movement.
But that's the only instance.
Usually, yes.
Gotcha.
Go over some of these things that we just did. I threw a block with the Black Orc, and since he's just straight up stronger than the lineman, I rolled 2 dice on the blocking dice, and I'm choosing Defender Stumbles because he doesn't have the dodge skill, so it's going to be a pushback and knock over. Now, for the direction that the Black Orc is facing, he gets to go to 1, 2, or 3 squares. Since this square is occupied and there are open squares, he has to go to an open square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to elect to push him back and knock him over here. And then I'm going to follow him with the Black Orc here and tie this guy up and keep these guys based in so I can push him away from the cage. Alright, so we move the second thrower that was still hanging back there to pick up the ball. And what we're going to do now is go to this agility table here. And it shows you the picking up the ball modifiers. So I get a +1 to picking up the ball, and because there are no opposing players in any tackle zones around the ball. Now we look at the player's agility. An Orc thrower is a 3 agility, so that's a natural 4+. Because he's picking up the ball, he gets a natural +1, so he's going to pick up the ball on a 3 or better. Picks up the ball. Now, if he would have failed that, he has his sure hand skill, he would have been able to actually get a free reroll off of that. So what I did, it kind of went according to plan. Unfortunately, I didn't get to knock any other players over other than the 2 that I managed to because, you know, the die rolls do things. But the cage is set up here specifically because I want to try to draw him away from that side. And basically so I get more flexibility, or maybe I just want to drive up the field and bait him into hitting me. It's all going to be determined on what he wants to do, but this is opening up a little bit of options for me. Just quite a few options, actually. Now, if you look over here, the reasons I didn't follow up with this Black Orc and I bounced this Blitzer back is because he's such a key piece that I want to keep him free of other players and hit him as well. So if he doesn't, try to mark him, then I'm going to move him towards the cage. That way I can have the strength 4 guys in front of it.
So when you say cage, basically it's this box you've built with your tackle zones around the ball carrier or the loose ball.
Exactly. So what I'm determining in the cage, you want to protect these corners. So it forces him to have to attack corners, but he can't have easy access to your ball carrier. Some teams can get around that. Humans not so much. So it's going to force him to actually attack one of those corners. And because I'm so far away from him, he's going to only get a blitz action on them, and that's going to force him to choose which corner he wants to attack if he wants to attack those players. And it also gives me the flexibility of being able to move players around in the cage. Say if he knocks this guy over, I can blitz with this back guy, push that guy out or knock him out, hopefully free this guy up to pick him up
and push down.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So you just kind of keep mixing the players up.
I like it. That's cool. Well, let's see what John's gonna do.
All right, so Jeremy was able to set up his cage over there on the left-hand side. Already got his perfect cage set up, so I'm in kind of a bad position. I'm a little out of position here, so my goal is actually going to be just to slow him down. So I'm going to try to push some of my guys over here without giving up too much ground on the left-hand side, so I can slow him down and make the cage come to me to hopefully be able to bust the cage next turn. Because I only have one blitz action this turn, everybody's far away from him. It's going to be almost impossible for me with humans to bust that cage on this turn. So at the end of the turn, you'll be able to see kind of a basic defensive setup that I'm going to try to do to slow him down. All right, and as you guys can see here, almost none of my models have moved, and that's because I have diarrhea of the mouth and talk too much, and forgot to move my turn marker. And we discussed this earlier. This is an optional rule. Not everybody has to play with it, but of course we choose to play with it. And if you're used to playing the cyanide game, you're not used to having to update your turn marker, but it is very punishing if you forget to do this. So as you can see, it's now on 1, but I have to forfeit my turn to Jeremy because I forgot to move my turn marker.
That's an illegal procedure. We just want to emphasize that it's not the cyanide game, and moving your turn marker is important. A lesser way you can do this is similar to what Mini Wargaming did. and just occur a free reroll. You get an extra reroll in case you catch them. But it's part of the game. It has been for a long time. And John's losing his turn because he started activating models before he touched his turn marker.
That sucks to suck.
Good luck, noob. All right, so since John didn't move his turn marker, I have a lot more freedom now because of the turnover. I get to move some pieces around. What I want to do is get the Black Orcs over here to assist the cage, so it keeps those bad boys up front and keeps most of his team occupied. It takes a little bit for them to take out the Strength 4 players with the box set. And then I'm going to move the cage, but I'm not going to move it too far downfield, maybe a couple of squares, base that lineman, take that lineman out with a blitz with this back blitzer, and then fill in with a thrower. Then try to keep this blitzer so he's free to move around. And basically, I'm just going to do the orc thing and move down a little bit at a time, grind him down, and take as long as possible to score, and try to inflict as much damage as possible in the process.
Okay, so this is what it looks like at the end of Jeremy's turn 2, right? Turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to catch up with the rest of the drive here a couple turns down the road, because we don't need to show you every turn. We just need to show you cool stuff you need to know about playing the game. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right, so a lot has happened. It's about to go to 5. It's the top of John's 4 here. And you can tell the ball, just like Jeremy said, he's only going to push up a little bit with his cage here. So what the heck is going on here, guys?
So he's injured. He injured a lineman over there. He was rolling hot with his armor rolls. Did the same thing to a Black Orc, only knocked him out, though. So in return, I've kind of baited him to the side. And he's just kind of jumped into it. So I'm basically in the midst of starting to surface players off of the field. I surfed a blitzer. Blitzer got destroyed by the crowd. And aiming to do that to more of his important players.
So unfortunately, I had a big lineup set up, and on the second to last movement of it, I forgot to do a follow-up, and this kind of shows in Blood Bowl how important the follow-up or stay is after you do a block. I set up this whole big thing to try to surf one of his guys off, and one minor mistake cost me to now be in a very bad position.
He wouldn't have gotten it anyways.
Well, I believe in the mortal words of Juice. It's get good.
Dude, we're all here for Nuffle.
All right, so the proverbial poop is about to hit the fan here. So Jeremy hasn't taken too many casualties, but let's look at John's side over here. Yo, dog. Those guys aren't going to be back in Bad Boys 3.
Those guys are dead.
Those guys, don't worry about these little guys.
Yeah,
so,
those are the guys in the little shanties.
Hashtag wrecked. Oh.
So he's got the ball here. He's looking to score. What are we going to do?
So I kind of screwed myself, so I'm going to have to go 6 and then to score and get the GFI. So we're going to go for it. And the GFI is a go for it. So we go to here. Go for it is anything but a 1. So I'm going to move him here. And you have to move to the square that you're going for it to before you roll the die. In case he falls over in that square. So now we're going to roll the die.
I feel like that's good.
That's good. Scored a touchdown.
Touchdown!
Yeah, we got one!
Yeah, but now I get a chance to get my guys back.
I know,
One of
it's
them.
Sweltering heat, so we get to see how many more guys you actually lose.
That's true. Or how many guys you lose.
Wow, dude. Wow.
Let's hopefully Jeremy
stick it
loses
in and
his
break it
entire
off.
team.
So now, if this was a league match, they had so there's casualties for each player that inflicted the casualties. I think only 2 of them were actually inflicted by my guys. The crowd ended up killing one guy, and then the other guy dodged and smashed his face on the turf and died. So, no joke, he straight up died. Just because he couldn't, move his feet properly. So those would be casualties are 2 star player points, and so for rookie teams, for the rookie players, you need 6 star player points to level up and get a new skill, or attribute boost if you raise it. But the touchdown would be 3 for the blitzer. We had a pass earlier from thrower, would have been 1 point, and that is about it. That is the recap of turn 8 for me, and because I was the receiving player and I was at the top of the turn, he still gets his turn 8, so I get to kick it off to him. And we're going to roll for Sweltering Heat because that's the weather we rolled. Because John likes rolling double 1s. And
I'm really good at rolling double 1s.
Yeah. The best way to win at this game is to plan on rolling 6s and defender down the entire time, and you cannot go wrong. But right now, the Sweltering Heat makes you line up all of your players, roll a dice for each one of them, and for each D6 roll of a 1, that player is thrown into the reserve box and then considered out for that drive.
And you're already down, 6 dudes?
The good
Half
news
your
is
team?
the good news is I only need to roll 6 times. whereas he's got to roll.
I got a lot of rolls, so it's probably gonna equalize after this. And for these knocked out guys, he's got one. I got a black orc and a lineman. We have to roll to get those guys back, and to do that, you basically declare that guy. And for example, you need a 4, 5, or 6. Put him back into reserves and bring him on the field. He's good.
Yeah.
But these guys do not count towards the sweltering heat because they were not on the field at the time of the drive.
Gotcha.
And then this guy, I roll d6, so he stays knocked out.
Then he's my lineman. And he
He's
comes
back.
in.
He's good to go.
So I'll have 2 guys coming because I had 1 guy in reserve.
So we're going to put these guys aside. The guys that are in the reserve box, we're not going to count those for the drive for sweltering heat. And we're going to take all these guys out.
Oh, you're literally just gonna line them up and start rolling?
You got to line them up and roll them off.
Oh my goodness.
And this can get really ugly really fast. I mean, it could go I lose half of my team, or John rolls 6 ones in a row and has nothing to put on the field.
Oh wow. So the game could literally end right here.
Yep.
Oh, no, he just keeps scoring touchdowns.
I pretty much just... The game
Get some
doesn't
star
end
player points.
unless you concede, which you really never want to do because it just doubles the money that the other player gets and the star player points. They get 2 MVPs. So that's a free 10 points that can be assigned to, I believe now it's D3 players in a league instead of random out of the 11 or 12 or whatever number you have.
We'll run this down right here and we'll see what happens, and then we'll cut it because I feel like everybody kind of should already be a Blood Bowl expert by now. So let's see what happens. We'll I guess start here with these guys.
All right, let's go with the Black Orc. He's good. Lineman, good. Thrower, good. Blitzer, fine. This guy, fine. Thrower, fine. Lineman, 2. He's good. This guy, they don't care about the
Okay, all right, hold
Fires
on.
all day.
So how many ones is John gonna roll?
At least 6.
My money's on 3.
3.
I got 3.
Here, let's use the same dice just to see.
No. We're
No,
gonna
that's
use
jinxing it.
Alright.
Okay, all right.
Ready? Thrower,
Don't corrupt my dice. Oh, he got a
That's a
6.
6.
Okay,
Catcher?
that's
The
good.
first one of the game.
makes it.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, I spiked those armor rolls.
Yeah.
Lineman. And he's out.
Smacked.
That's 1.
Second lineman. This lineman. 3.
That's a 3. Your
That's a-
dice are
that's-
all
wow.
over
There
the
we
place.
go.
Okay.
So I only
he-
lost 1.
Which isn't too devastating. He doesn't go in the knockout box. He goes as a reserve, so he misses this drive. Unfortunately, it's only 1 turn, so I'm not really going to benefit from that. And if the weather doesn't change, then we're going to have to do it all over at the beginning of the second half.
Ugh, brutal.
Yep.
All right, so that's it. Everybody should be pretty much a Blood Bowl expert by now. So go out, pick up the new Blood Bowl game if you can find it. I guess it's already like sold out everywhere. But if you can find it, pick it up. It doesn't suck.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.